Good afternoon. My name is Remley Fraley, and due to the distance and the willingness of my uncle to speak live on camera, this was the option you presented, and I unfortunately have to take it. My uncle's very hesitant, and I was surprised that he would even speak to me about his service in Vietnam. But I did interview my uncle, Danny Preston Conrad, and while his answers I did find a little, I don't know, sugar-coated, he did not address any of the negative aspects I've always heard about Vietnam. But it could be either, I don't know, it could be either he just didn't want to go too far into it, or he really didn't put that much faith in the negative. He's not a negative person. But the questions that I asked my uncle were, what branch of the service did you serve in, and in what years? He was a sergeant in the Army, and he served from 68 to 70, somewhere at the end of 70, beginning of 71. I asked him if he was drafted or enlisted, and he said he enlisted. When I asked him what brought him to enlist, he said that he wanted to see the world and experience life, which I find, that's a heck of a way to go experience life. Did you realize when Vietnam became an issue in regards to the U.S. and that it would affect you personally? He said that in 1968, the rioting was going on and it kept escalating, and he knew sooner or later it would affect him. When I asked him, and I should have ended with this, but I did emphasize, the big close on this one. I asked him what his thoughts were about Vietnam then versus now. And he says that when he went to Vietnam, he wanted to help the people out. That was his reason for going. But he soon found out that they did not want to help themselves. They didn't like the Americans, but they didn't want to do anything to better their lives or better their situation. And when I asked him how he stayed in touch with our family, he said it was through letters. And I knew that my grandmother had died shortly during or right after his time. I'd have to go back and look at the death certificate. But he told me that it was in Vietnam through a letter from I have to go back, either my aunt or my grandfather, but I'm pretty sure it was my grandfather. He found out that his mother, my grandmother, was eaten up with breast cancer. How did the soldiers entertain themselves? And he says that ever so often they were given a day off, and they usually just relaxed, or at least he did. He wouldn't go into any further detail, because I did ask him while we were talking, chatting, messaging, whatever, were the rumors of drug abuse and addiction. He would not address that. So I don't know if that means he partook or he has friends that did, so I'm not sure. When you took leave, what did you do, or what did you see? And he said that on his first 2-week R&R, he went to Australia, and then the second R&R, he went to Taiwan. Did you find Vietnam beautiful, minus all of the carnage going on around you? And he said that Vietnam was beautiful, that what areas that were not hit by the war, which was not anywhere near where he was at. Where were you and what were you doing when you found out your service was ending and you were going home? And he said he spent some time in the area called Nha Trang. He worked with security forces protecting villages. Did you make any friendships in Vietnam that lasted once you were home? And he said he did make friends, and he still keeps in contact with some of them. I guess that's a bond forged in the heat of battle, literally. Was Vietnam hard? It was very hard, he says. Fighting the ants, the mosquitoes, snakes, walking through rice paddies, swamps, etc. Malaria. How did Vietnam change you? He has some head problems on his return, but they got better and he survived. Neither he nor my mom would go into any further detail. Finally, do you think the U.S. ever had any business in Vietnam, and if so, why? The U.S. should never have gone to Vietnam unless they intended to win, and the U.S. never had a clear strategy or goal to win, just to maintain the status quo. And he closed with that. So, thank you.